Now we're on to the intake manifold. Pretty much the last part going into this motor. At least enough to close off everything else other than valve covers and exhaust gaskets and those types of things, but we're a ways off from needing any of those things. Same thing on the intake gaskets that I do on the timing cover. I'm going to grab the RTV that I just put away, and I'm only going to do these water jacket ports, or water ports. You do not need RTV on the inner section or the sealing surface. Again, just take one little glob on your finger. I'm just going to work it right around the coolant passage. Do both sides. This is just kind of extra insurance against leaking around the coolant passage, which is good because we don't want leaks. So we're going to do that one there. There's a lot on this side. One there. Flip it. Then we're going to hit the other side. I always try and keep just one finger dirty here. Sometimes I'll use my thumb and press it around, but silicone's a pain, so once it starts getting on your hands or fingers, or just goes everywhere. It's sticky and tacky, so it's going to basically follow wherever you touch. You'll just leave fingerprints on everything. There's probably cleaner methods of doing this too, but this is how I do it. I guess technically you could take the tube and dab it on here as well, but whatever. There's no right or wrong. Okay. Then I will set this down on here first. On the intake gasket, you have this little ridge section here. These are going to line up around the tabs here. Which one can you guys see better? This side. So, since you guys can see this side better, this is going to line up here, and that ridge is going to catch on the edge of the head gasket. So we'll set this here, take my dirty silicone finger and tack it down. This will hold it in place. I'm going to clean up a little bit out of the port here too. So a lot of the times if you are doing any porting on your motor, you're going to want to basically open up the ports to match this. Stay away from the floor, but basically you're just going to take a grinder, router, carbide bit and carve the ports out to match the gasket surface. That's not even the full porting part, but gasket matching, if you will. Works well. Just taking out some of those casting flaws and matching up the gasket will provide some improvement. Alright, so where did I put the silicone this time? Nope, that's what fell. Alright, second gasket, we're going to do the same thing. I'll try this method this time, try and see if I can stay a little cleaner. Just one quick little pass. This actually works really well. I don't know why I haven't done this regularly. I'm just so used to getting dirty. Okay, one side's done. Flip it over, do the same thing on the other side. Recommend squeezing the tube out like toothpaste. Works a little bit better. Sometimes you switch it up and try something new and it actually works out. Same thing on this. Let me bring you over to this side so you can see it. There we go. Wipe the silicone off my hands. We're going to do a little bit more silicone. We're not done yet. But that should be the last one. Don't wipe shop rags over your motor and drop things in like I just did. Quick and easy to pick that one up though. So now we have the intake manifold gaskets pretty much in place. Let me adjust you guys a little bit here. Now we're ready to drop the intake manifold on, almost. Two sections here. The China walls, there's one here, there's one that runs along the back. When you buy a set of intake manifold gaskets, it will come with some cork parts for there. I'm trying to see where I just set them. It'll come with these. You can drop these on, they run over that. I'm not the biggest fan of these personally. It also comes with a new O-ring for your distributor. I don't typically use those. What I will do is take the thing of silicone and run a thick bead here, almost like a 1/4 inch thick bead. On the other ones, we're really just smearing them around for the gasket to hold. On this, we're actually going to be, you're actually trying to build up a thick wall here. I've used it both ways. I've used the cork gaskets and those work fine, but the silicone one tends to work a little bit easier. And if you're going to be in and out of it, I'm not sitting there with a scraper trying to break off dried out felt cork gaskets. So normally when I get the silicone tubes, I usually throw out that tube that comes on it or comes with it right away. This is one of those instances where it would actually be useful. I'm also going to put a big glob in the corner where this meets the mating surface. I think on all the engine builder TV shows, they usually use the aerosol can or the squeeze out one. They're expensive for those, but they do work really well for stuff like this. I'm not going to knock it because I've used it once and it was really nice. But I'm poor. There we go, 2 big beads of silicone. I actually do not have the bolts for this. I forgot about the intake manifold bolts. But I got a spare motor in the corner, so I just yanked the bolts off of that. So they're going to be dirty, crusty, and covered in road grime, but we're not building a show car or a show motor. So this will work just fine. Here's your brand new intake manifold from Summit. The machining looks pretty okay from first glance. I didn't overanalyze anything or thoroughly look into this. It's a bare intake, so I got to swap out all the sensors and stuff from that intake I just stole the bolts from. But what we're going to do is line this up with where it needs to be. Make sure prior to trying to put this in that your gaskets, the bolt holes for all your gaskets are in place where they're supposed to be. So if you saw me tapping this down, I was trying to glue the gasket in where it's supposed to be, which right now is exactly correct. So then we're going to take the intake manifold and I'm going to line up these front studs. And you do not want to have to move this once you kind of set it in place. So right now I just set it down, let gravity do its thing. All of my bolt holes line up. And we're going to come around and drop in some bolts. All of them except for one. So I got one shiny stainless bolt that's going in here. But that's okay too. They do make stud kits for these intakes as well. On the intake, I would almost recommend something like that. I just think it's a little bit easier when you're going to put it in. If all the studs are there and all you got to do is drop the intake on the studs, you got a fixed point for everything. Now I got all the bolts in. Just like before, I'm not torquing anything down. I'm just going to snug these up evenly. Crisscross pattern. So I'm going to start at the inside. Work my way out. That bolt might actually be a little long. The one that I just picked up off the floor that looked about right might not actually be the right one. Let's find a bolt. Do have a good amount of hardware in this garage, so give me just a second. Of course, I would say I have a good amount of hardware and then realize that 5/16 is what I'm actually running low on right now for the right length, which is fine. For now, just because this is getting set, I'll readjust and get the right bolt for this at a later date. Just going to stack some washers so I'm not driving this too far down. So now everything's snug down. I'm going to go back around, do this all over again. And because this is such a big surface area, I'll keep doing this a handful of times. That electric ratchet doesn't really have any torque power. This one's a little bit better. This is more than enough for what I need. As you can see, it's really not doing all that much. These don't need to be crazy, crazy tight. The gasket here will seal. But there's that. We pretty much have a motor. I got a new thermostat I'm going to put in and a water pump housing I'm going to throw on real quick too. I'll do that for this video actually, but everything else is on here. Just looking at some of the casting on this manifold for the first time. Everything's in. I got a bunch of sensors I got to swap out of this junk motor over here. It's not junk, but definitely dirty. Doesn't look like it's lived the happiest life. It did run and drive and it sounded really good. Just leaked a bunch of oil and is in need of some love and some freshening up. So let me dig out the thermostat and all those parts and we'll be back.